Hello everyone and welcome back to the Great Book of Grudges. My name is Nathan and we're back with another showcase for SFO Grimhammer's newest patch, the Storm of Chaos, which will be dropping on the 27th of January. I had to actually check just again, but this is a major patch for SFO Grimhammer, bringing all the stuff that you loved from Warhammer 2 onto Warhammer 3. And if you're new to the series, this is a major overhaul for the game, which basically just reshapes how you play Total War Warhammer 3. So, with all that being said, we're going to be looking at Bretonnia today, and let's get started. So we're going to talk about the faction and lord effects because a few things have changed. Let's start off with Leonker and the faction effects. Unique technologies, landmarks, and Green Knight skills. Campaign movement range plus 25% for armies. Own armies faction-wide in own territory. So, a bit more defensive, you're going to be able to move around Bretonnia a little bit better, once you control it, of course. Hero recruit rank plus 5 for Paladins and Sons of Bretonnia. Income from settlement buildings plus 100%. And passive ability, bolstered command for all characters faction-wide. When we look onto the Lord effects, we have the following. Chivalry plus 4 per turn. Leon starts with all knightly vows unlocked. Upkeep minus 10% for Lord's army. Passive ability, the Blessing of the Lady. Leadership plus 5 when fighting against the Warriors of Chaos, Demons of Chaos, Undead, and Greenskins for Lord's Army, melee attack plus 5 when fighting against the Warriors of Chaos, Demons of Chaos, Undead, and Greenskins for Lord's Army, and finally army ability Lion of Bretonnia. Moving on to Alberic, who's obviously in Lustria for some reason, your faction effects are as follows: unique technologies, landmark, and Green Knight skills. Experience gain plus 25% for Bretonnia Knight units. Recruitment duration minus 1 turn for Bretonnia Knight units, minimum of 1 turn. Income from ports plus 25%. Immune to high seas, reef, and storm attrition. And finally melee attack plus 10 for Regiment of Renown units, where your lord effects are as follows: chivalry plus 4 per turn. Melee defense plus 5 for peasant mobs, men-at-arms, and spearmen-at-arms for Lord's Army. Melee defense plus 10 for Knight of the Realm units and Lord's Army. Upkeep minus 20% for Knights of the Realm units and Lord's Army. And finally an army ability known as Chosen of Manaan. Moving on to the Fey Enchantress, we have the following faction effects: unique technologies, landmark, and Green Knight skills. Don't worry, we'll be checking those out later. Peasants economy plus 10 for peasants available to your faction. Diplomatic relations plus 50 with the Wood Elf factions. That means that you're going to be a little bit better off without Orion going straight for you. Construction cost minus 50% for infrastructure buildings. Casualty replenishment rate plus 20% for knight units. Recruitment rank plus 5 for prophetesses and damsels. Now, on the Lord effects, you have Chivalry plus 4 per turn, Corruption minus 5 for local province, Passive ability, Blessing of the Lady, Attribute causes fear, melee attack plus 25 for peasant mob units, Lord's Army. That's going to be very strong peasants. And finally, an ability known as Blessing of the Fey. Those specific abilities I'm going to allow for you to discover by yourself, as, you know, it's a bit more fun when you kind of like find a few things here and there, right? And finally, for Legendary Lords, we have Rapanse the Lyonesse, and her faction effects are as follows: unique technologies, landmark, and Green Knight skills. Control plus 4 in own province when an army is present. Upkeep minus 20% for embedded heroes. Diplomatic relations minus 100 with vampire counts, Vampire Coast, and Tomb Kings. It's going to be quite an interesting campaign for you, seeing as you're surrounded by a lot of undead factions. Charge bonus plus 25% when attacking own armies faction-wide in enemy territory, and Knights Errant and Questing Knights are more durable when above 75% health though. Then her Lord effects are as follows: Chivalry plus 4 per turn, Physical resistance plus 10% for all peasant units in Lord's Army, Casualty replenishment rate plus 10% for non-knight units in Lord's Army, Leadership plus 5 for peasant units, all armies faction-wide, and finally ability Halo of Maidenly Wrath. So we're going to talk about the technology tree, as there's a few things to talk about here. So everything that's been established prior with the vanilla technology tree has had a bit of rebalancing, so a few things have gotten some better bonuses, just in general to make the Bretonnian tech a bit better. Now, there is some generic new tech that's been added in by Venris in an effort to just fluff up the actual tree a bit more, which does work out quite well. It makes sure that you've got a little bit more to go through, because the tech tree does end quite early into your campaign when you play in normal vanilla standard. The great thing is, or at least the way I've seen it, is that it is very incredibly fluid with your standard campaign, so it's not like it's going to stand out too much. Now, there is another tech tree which we'll talk about later, but the extra additions to the vanilla stuff works out incredibly well. Now, when we start looking towards each of your playable legendary lords, there are 4, they've all got their own unique extra technology. So something at the very beginning, which you're going to need to, you know, confederate with the rest of the factions and so on, well, depending who you're playing, and then another tree which is focused on giving you really, really big buffs. This is something that you're not really going to get early on anyway. This is the one for Leon Leonka. But the way this has been done is to add a little bit more flavor and make each of the factions a little bit more unique, which, in all fairness, yeah, it kind of needs to happen, because right now all the factions just kind of play the same. Well, barring, you know, Rapanse. On screen right now is for Alberic, and what you can see again is it fits with his theme, it fits with the lore that's established for the character, where obviously right now you're just kind of focusing on fighting against Vampire Coast, or getting some extra recruitment because you are needing to expand in Lustria. So really what you could think of this as extra faction effects, but with a few extra steps to actually get there. And yeah, I think this works out quite well. It's still very steep, and it's going to take a while for you to get. I mean, 1,000 chivalry is going to take a while for you to actually get to. Even then, there's a few others, you know, that cost like 500, which are pretty good, but it's going to be a little bit of a wait. But, you know, these are the things. I mean, the campaigns are supposed to be fairly long anyway. And I honestly think this is great. I've been playing for a few hours. I've had a decent amount of time thanks to Venris giving me some early access to just kind of check over it. And yeah, everything for all the Bretonnians just feels really, really cool. Here's all the stuff with relations to the Fey Enchantress. And yeah, it just all makes a lot of sense. It's pretty good. It's actually something that I hope we might see in a style in vanilla in the future, mostly because it would be cool if other lords had some unique tech just to add a little bit more flavor, but thankfully SFO kind of just handles that anyway, and you've got the bonuses here for Rapanse, which again makes sense. It's just making sure that your stuff is strong. Hell, you can make your main army, so Rapanse's main army, incredibly durable with extra physical resistance with every rank that they achieve. It is really, really good. There's some pretty big changes to how chivalry works in terms of bonuses, so as you start going through the bonuses, you're going to get much, much better ones, and I feel like this is just generally better. It gives you a reason to be more chivalrous, you know? Be, well, you know, Lady Bathwater Simp. But yeah, this is honestly so much better. You've got a lot of just really powerful abilities here, a lot of powerful bonuses. It's going to take for a while for you to actually get to the very top, as you need, what, like 10,000? Well, 8,000 to 10,000. But it's definitely going to make your campaigns feel a lot more fun as you start getting into that end game where you're starting to, you know, snowball a bit more. You would have noticed also that if you don't have the Green Knight summoned, he will also come to your defense. He'll spawn in, and I feel like that's just really lore-friendly because it's what he does in lore. He comes in your hour of need. Construction will remain very much the same for Bretonnia, but a few new buildings have been added in, some new chapels and stuff, just to really get you that whole feel of Bretonnia. You know, it's a very pious, religious nation with loads of churches everywhere, and you're getting a little bit of this. Plus, the fact is that you do get these chapels, and they have some faction-wide bonuses, sometimes just in the province, but it all fits with the lore. Plus, you know, a lot of factions will be getting faction-wide bonuses, so this keeps you as close to balanced to the others as possible. Obviously, you have to build them up if you want them to get stronger. There's also been some rebalance to the vanilla buildings, just to make sure that everything just kind of works and is a little bit, you know, decent. Bretonnia did get the short end of the stick when it came to the official patch a few months ago, so this is just kind of rectifying those issues. You'll also notice that your stances have been changed. There's new stances, and there's also just a general reshuffle of stats and so on, just to kind of make them a bit more better. It's definitely a better change just to make Bretonnia a little bit more stronger, as unfortunately the faction does kind of suffer due to the fact of how the army is kind of built in terms of units. This is going to be quite cool for you guys. So when you confederate with other dukedoms, you'll now get a pop-up dilemma, which will also give you some tributes, right? You can pick which one you want, and each of the dukedoms also have different types of bonuses. So it might not just be the ones that you see on screen right now. The idea is, you know, it's a little bit of flavor. It's the joining of the dukedoms. Why shouldn't you be able to get a little bit of a bonus, especially since, well, you know, Confederation does make you a little bit weaker sometimes, as that takes you closer to, say, Grom the Paunch, or, well, you know, you're going to be dealing with Bellicor very early on, or the fact that the AI just spams armies so your peasantry will take a massive dive. There is a new unique hero type known as the Son of Bretonnia, and you'll be able to have access to them at tier 5, so it's going to take a while for you to actually get them. So this is a really interesting concept. It's the sons that get taken by the Fey Enchantress, essentially. And it's a melee-based character, but also has access to a few different spells, like for example Harmonic Convergence, Earthblood, and so on. So it's a bit of a hybrid. It's also there to be able to get a few bonuses towards your actual areas. So it's very multi-purpose, and it's definitely something that you're going to be wanting to bring into your armies once you're able to start recruiting them. The idea is not to completely replace paladins. Paladins are still very much your hammer, but these are an extra bit of fluff just in case you need a little bit extra support. Talking about support, you have the Green Knight, of course, but here in SFO, you have access to skills. So your Green Knight will actually have different skill lines to be able to just mix and match on how you please, and you can tailor the Green Knight. He is a proper legendary hero now. Yes, he's still got that summon mechanic, and you will have to summon him in, but you can tailor him, and that's always the great thing. Now, like I said earlier in the video, you would have noticed in the Lord selection screen, every legendary horde has some different skills for the Green Knight. We're not going to be going over through that there, but it makes sure that your Green Knight is multi-purpose and is different each time that you play. A few new units have been added into your Bretonnian roster just to fill it out a little bit more, and the first is the Men-at-Arms with Maces. This gives you a nice frontline unit with, a little bit of armor-piercing damage, as the Brets do actually lack a lot of armor-piercing units, so I think this works out quite well. It fits with the theme, and, well, to be honest, it's something that you could kind of expect on the tabletop anyway, and it's pretty low tier, so it's not like it's going to be changing up your campaign for good, so I think this works out pretty well. The next unit itself are the Knights Errant on foot. So this is actually something that I spoke about on a video, actually, which I'm really happy to see here. It's weird that we just don't have Knights on foot on the tabletop, and it's weird that we didn't have it on, Total War, because there are just some terrains that you're not going to be able to fight in with a horse, and sometimes you're going to need to go onto the battlements. Yeah, I know some people are going to say, but the lore says this. Well, the lore is kind of wrong, because even in the tabletop, you could field paladins on foot. Plus, the lore for Bretonnia has been rewritten like 4 times in the space of like 2 army books. A lot of things have changed. We'll move on to the next unit though, which are the Hermit Knights. Now these are kind of cool because they're kind of like your Bretonnian aspiring champions. They've got a lot of abilities. They're basically aspiring champions. That's probably the best way of saying it. They're like the Warriors of Chaos aspiring champions, but for Bretonnia, and I think this works out quite well because it gives you a really high tier unit with small entity size, so they won't die as quick, but you're able to just have something nice to see, and yeah, they look pretty freaking cool. Men-at-Arms with longbows will give you that whole Agincourt feel, because 195 range is nothing to sniff at. They're still expendable, and yes, their close range stats are pretty bad, but then again, it's a peasant after all. I like the idea of having a real long-range bowman just supporting you from behind. Obviously, you're going to have to keep them safe because they will start to melt, but yeah, it's awesome, honestly. It just gives you that feel, and it kind of makes you look like the old school miniatures from, I think it was the 5th edition box? Was the Bretonnians versus Lizardmen? Yeah, it was, and let's be honest, having the peasant archers all the time throughout your whole campaign without having anything to upgrade with other than just, a variant with the pox arrows or the fire arrows, it just felt a little bit boring, so this definitely just adds a little bit more flavor. And not only that, but there is an even better archer, which are the Herimolts, and these ones are super cool, very old school lore. You've got Master Ambusher, they're Vanguard, they're also expendable too, but they can fire whilst moving, 200 range. They're decent, I guess, in melee, but not really. But these are your long-range skirmish fires, and I love these. Honestly, they're a really good unit to have later game, especially once you start dealing with so many different Chaos factions and stuff. Just having some proper endgame support for that type of Bretonnia, which still hasn't really been explored vanilla-wise. You never know for the future, but it's good to have something to supplement that now, and I think that SFO does it really well. The great thing is SFO has always gone into some older lore just to look for some inspiration if they need to implement new units. Bretonnia as itself has a few different changes, and I would say that they're still feeling like they did in vanilla, just fixing up some issues and giving them a little bit more. I think that's what really was needed, not a drastic rework, but just a little bit of identity between each of the different legendary lords. I honestly have been having a decent amount of fun here. I've mostly been playing as Leon Lilka because I always like to play as the faction leader, really. But hey, we're all different. Anyways, let me know what you guys think about the changes coming to Bretonnia and SFO Grimhammer in the comments below. Venris and the SFO team will be checking out these comments. And with all that being said, I've been really suffering from a fever, so I'm going to go back to bed now. And I'll see you guys all very, very soon. Have a good day.